Oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at his tattoos.
The Holler Kings, where the horrors southern fried.
Hello, I'm Craig.
And I'm Adam.
And we're the Holler Kings.
The motherfucking Holler Kings.
It's true. You know, since this goes on YouTube, I think if you say the F word in the first 10 seconds, you're automatically, like, docked somehow. I don't know if it's like a monetization thing.
Oh, really?
Which is obviously not something we're worried about. But I don't know if it hurts our, like, algorithm or whatever,
shit.
too. I have no idea. I don't know how that works.
Fuck YouTube.
I mean, it is what it is. I don't think we'll change it.
Man, that's crazy.
Today, we're going to be speaking at length about the 1991 film Cape Fear.
He paid his debt to society.
And what was he in prison for?
Now,
Come out, wherever you are. I want you the hell off my property!
he's paying back his lawyer.
You have a daughter around 16?
16? What?
We got the psychopath in our faces?
Evening, ladies.
You son of a... I mean, who knows what's true and what isn't?
From director Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Nick Nolte, Jessica Lange, Cape Fear, rated R. Exclusive engagement Wednesday. Starts Friday.
That's right, baby.
This is, of course, Martin Scorsese's remake of the 60s classic that starred Robert Mitchum and Gregory Peck.
Yes, sir.
And this stars, very famously, Robert De Niro chewing a lot of scenery. He was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this role. Lost out to Anthony Hopkins for This Was the Year of Silence of the Lambs.
Which makes sense.
And, you know, he's opposite Nick Nolte,
That's correct.
Jessica Lange.
Julia Lewis.
Yes. And then Mr. Jodan Baker.
Yes, and even we got a true Southerner here with Fred Thompson.
Alabama, born, Tennessee based.
Yes, sir.
He's a local legend. And then, of course, we have Mitchum and Gregory Peck returning.
Right.
And Balsam, what's his name? Martin Balsam. He was in Psycho as well. He very famously. And he's a couple of Twilight Zone episodes. He's
And then
very
see what
famous
we even
actor.
got. Is it Ileana Douglas?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
She's great in this.
Yeah.
And she's an ingenue of Martin Scorsese. They had a relationship
really?
roughly around this era. I don't know if it happened during it or maybe a little after.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. She's like a big film scholar now. I don't know if you follow her at all, but
No.
she just wrote a book about film locations in Connecticut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a very, very specific lane of, you know, expertise where she just kind of like goes over how Connecticut has doubled for like the suburbs in so many movies. And, you know, different feelings. Like there's a very famous Burt Lancaster movie called The Swimmer that's like about existential dread of middle age and all this stuff. And it takes place in Connecticut. I think that's like the cover of the book that she wrote. Yeah.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I always like her. She's a fantastic actress.
Oh, she definitely is. And she pops up on podcasts every now and then. I think she's been on like The Movies That Made Us or whatever it's called with Joe Dante and Leonard Maltin's podcast. I think she's been on it. So, and she's just like straight up a film historian now. I mean, I'm sure she does acting. I don't know. But I feel like that's her major thing now is kind of transitioned into, you know, just being like a big authority on, you know, movies and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's terrific in this and plays a very important part in setting up just how formidable the Mr. Max Caddy can be.
Yes.
How threatening he can be. Adam, tell me the basic plot of Cape Fear, set in North Carolina, shot in Savannah, Georgia, and Florida.
Oh, my word. This follows an attorney played by Nick Nolte who is just living life, enjoying the finer things. Very yuppie-ish, I guess you could say.
Milquetoast.
Yes. Yeah. Who ends up coming across a gentleman played by Robert De Niro, Max. Is it Caddy?
Yeah.
Who has a personal connection with him from the past, and it's time for Mr. Counselor to reap what he sows.
Yeah, it's very, very well put. It's the idea basically is Nick Nolte. Nick Nolte is a attorney, like you said, but he was defense for Robert De Niro back in the day.
14 years ago.
14 years ago. And Nolte had something up his sleeve that may have helped Robert De Niro's case, Caddy's case, a little bit. But he found Caddy so reprehensible that he decided not to act on it and let Caddy basically get the full impact of this rape case or whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Max deserved to go to jail, and he had a way that could probably get him, at least, if not get him out of jail, get a very reduced sentence. And he chose the, I would say, moral route, but, maybe not by standards of law, and chose to kind of hide that.
Well, that's like the moral quandary is technically Nick Nolte's spot is a defense lawyer, so he should be going full stop.
Right.
Trying to get the best case scenario for his client, no matter what the morality of it is. And I mean, we're dancing around it. The thing that was up his sleeve that he discovered is that the woman that was raped was, by their standards, promiscuous.
Yeah.
And that may have helped sell the idea of like, well, maybe, was this rape or whatever. But obviously, I mean, morally, we all know, like,
it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, again, it's a different time, and it's already a different time from the 90s. But to me, I'm 100% on Nick Nolte's side. I mean,
for sure.
I'm conflicted because I guess technically I do want defense attorneys to do their job, to the maximum extent of the law or whatever. But like, I guess in terms of a fictional story, I side with him for sure. I've been like, screw this guy. And also, let's face it, we learn very quickly that Caddy is a terrible person. It's not like he is.
Yeah, he thinks. What is it? Sam? Is that Nolte's character?
You are correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
He thinks Sam could have got him off or something, but you see Max Caddy and you're like, that wouldn't have mattered. You were going to fucking jail.
Something would have happened at some point. Yeah. But I mean, we're
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
So you've seen both of them, right?
I have.
Is the original pretty much the same story?
Yeah, it's for all purposes a similar dynamic and everything. I feel like they play around a little bit more with the idea of, Jessica Lange's character she's not wanting to be a housewife. I mean, I think we get that set up very quickly. She's like artistic. She
does like logos or designs for companies, I guess. Maybe like a side type thing or something.
And it's I think it's stated in dialogue at some point that they moved to this city because Nick Nolte had an affair.
Right.
So
they kind of have a big blow up about that.
Yeah. And there's like this undercurrent about that where she is obviously never going to forgive him for it, and they're never going to move on from it or whatever. But for whatever reason, she's staying in the marriage, and
there's a different time.
Well, yeah, and he is, because of that, kind of neutered a little bit. Like he's sort of an ineffectual man. And, when he's playing tennis with Ariana, oh, no, Ariana. That's not
Ileana?
Ileana Douglas.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
There's kind of the hint that this is probably who he should be with. Like, they have like a chemistry and they're kind of on equal footing in a way. And it seems like there's that little hint that maybe this is the trajectory of his life a little bit, that maybe this person, there might be come to a head and be like, listen, I'm not going to be treated like this for the rest of my life for this indiscretion. So let's pull the trigger and, But like I love all that stuff, that like weird, it's almost like subtext, because at the end of the day, this is a monster movie, right? This is like
Max Caddy is goddamn Jason.
Yeah, I mean this is such a funny era, like the late 80s, early 90s. There was like a minute where these auteur filmmakers were like, you know what? I'm going to make the most commercial shit that I can make for a minute. And,
oh boy, did Scorsese go commercial with it.
I mean, like we're going to make something that's a crowd pleaser that makes some money, and then I can go off and make, you know, some kind of art house movie or something I really am passionate about. Coppola did it with Dracula. Yeah. You could argue he also did it with Godfather Part 3. De Palma did it with Untouchables. Like they kind of like were dealing in that sort of thing for a minute. And so we get this lightning in a bottle example of Scorsese just having fun. And it's so far out there that he's almost doing like film school stuff. You know, like things that you would never do as a real full-fledged filmmaker. Yeah. He's like, fuck it, I'm going to do it in this movie.
This feels like a first-time filmmaker's movie. It really does.
It's like someone that has obvious talent, but they have no filter to go, maybe that's a little cliche, or maybe that's a little heavy-handed. Yeah. He's like, no, I don't care. That's like this is melodrama. This is a monster movie dialed up to 11, so I'm just going to like, you know.
There are so many Dutch angles in this movie. I feel like during pre-production they were producing like this very classical horror thriller, and halfway through it, Scorsese saw Evil Dead 2 and said, "No, wait, let's do this."
You know, it's funny you say that, because apparently Fangoria, they were barred from the set. They weren't allowed to cover it because they were worried. The studio was worried that it would be labeled a horror movie, and they wanted it to be considered a thriller. So they wouldn't let Fangoria do it. I forgot
this was the 90s where
thriller was like
nowadays we have the term elevated horror. It used to in the 90s it was called thriller. That was their way of getting around calling a horror movie a horror movie.
Same for Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah,
they did the same thing. Yeah. And this, even though it's so bombastic, and we're talking about how it's almost like silly in a way, but that's one of the things I love about it.
It was super silly.
Yeah. I mean, like the camera trick stuff, you know, you're talking about the Dutch angles is a big one, but there's also like stuff like, you know, a character walking into the camera.
Yes.
Like, people don't do that. Like that's a film school thing. You know what I mean? So it's so cool that Scorsese was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do it. Like,
I'm not gonna lie. This movie kind of challenged me at first. I was like, the fuck am I watching here? I thought I was watching a Scorsese movie. Right. And I hate, like, because you don't want to shit on a Scorsese movie, but, you know, well, that's not true, because I'll eviscerate Shutter Island any day. But, like, yeah, there was a point where, like, almost back-to-back scenes, someone walks in the camera to end the scene and cut to the next one. I was like, if this is going to keep doing this, I'm fucking out. I'm not going to keep going through this.
They even do, like, they go to a negative at certain points.
Just like weird, just like such points where it's just like, why are you doing?
Because you can.
I saw some. I don't know if it's true, but I read trivia on this. That it's like the first movie that Scorsese used like digital effects in, and I was like, no, I could see that.
Right.
I could see that. Well, there's unnecessary scenes of like the sky being like pink and purple and stuff. Right. I'm like, there's in these scenes that are supposed to be like just so devastating, and he's just walking out of jail. It's the scene where he walks into camera.
Right.
But he's walking out of jail. The sky's like purple. Like the score is like heightened and huge. And all that's happening is the scene. There's like, hey, what about your books? And he's like, I read them all. It's like, all that for that scene?
The elephant in the room is De Niro's accent. Like, if you read about the trivia or, you know, what he's said about this part, he claims he recorded actual Southerners and studied how they talk to do this accent.
De Niro's a goddamn liar.
He's lying his ass off. He sounds like a college kid, like, doing a stage play in New Jersey. And it's like,
never met a Southern person in their life except for, like,
it's like
Foghorn Leghorn or something.
He's doing like the Monkey Trials play. I forget what that's called. It might just be called the Monkey Trial. I don't know. Inherit the Wind. And it's like someone's doing Inherit the Wind, in New Jersey, and they're trying to do Southern accents, and it just sounds straight up, like you said, Foghorn Leghorn.
You look the same, maybe 15 pounds heavier. But they say the average man gains a pound a year till he's about...
Oh, come on.
Gains a pound a year till he's about 60. Me, I dropped a pound every year in my sentence.
Trying to be different. And I don't know if it's like an Andy Kaufman thing where he's saying, oh yeah, I studied Southerners and this is very authentic. And like in the back of his head, he's like, are you guys idiots? Like this, I'm just playing around. This is just so fun.
Stupid.
And I think that's why it works, is it's so far ahead and so far, it like comes full circle where I kind of appreciate the joke a little bit, and I can kind of handle the fact that it is not supposed to be authentic. But he claims it is. So that's the only fly in the ointment. If he said publicly, I know Southern people don't really talk like this. I'm just like, this is just like a cartoon character. I'm playing a monster basically, and I'm just going for it, and it's fun. I would accept it a little bit more. But if he's trying to tell people he studied Southern accents as a method actor, the greatest actor of his generation, this is what he comes up with. It's kind of like, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
Also,
he watched Gomer Pyle on Andy Griffin, said yes.
Well, it's funny because this is like very steeped in Southernness, yet we have a director that is like through and through a New Yorker. He's from Queens.
Pretty much the majority of people were like New York based.
Joe Don Baker's the only one that's from the South.
And Fred Thompson, maybe?
Oh, for sure. He's from Alabama.
That's like it.
For sure. Yeah.
And they're pretty secondary characters for the most part.
Yeah, I mean,
Baker's got a little bit more screen time, but
yeah, like all the main cast are from, LA and, New York and stuff like that, which is to be expected. And I feel like they all handle it pretty well, with the exception of De Niro,
everybody else,
who was nominated for an Oscar. So whatever.
Yeah. If you've ever wondered if the Oscars mean anything, just take a cursory glance at some of the people that have been nominated and won in the past. The Oscars don't mean a fucking thing.
I mean, it is a fun performance, in fairness, though.
Is it Oscar worthy?
Right.
But is it fun? Yeah,
right.
It's fun.
Right.
And it was so, man, this movie was jarring. It was a lot to get on board with. Like, this movie hits the ground running, and if you're not ready for it, it's going to leave you behind. It took me a lot of catching up. I was winded after I finally caught up with it because it does not stop. From the moment it hits, it's just like boom, 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 scene. It's jarring. It throws you off. And like I said, maybe it's just me, but the tone fell off to me. But maybe that's just because I thought I was going into like a classic horror thriller. I thought this was going to be very kind of Scorsese, but this feels very much like, it feels very 90s. It feels very much reminiscent of like a first-time filmmaker, something like Jason Goes to Hell, and just like doing all these like film school things and stuff like that. And
sure.
Here's some Hitchcock, here's some Raimi, here's this, and let me throw this into the mix. And it was jarring, to say the least. As someone I think this was basically my first time watching it. While watching it, I realized that I'd watched this on TV like way back in the early 90s. I'd completely forgot about it. But as this basically being my first time watching it, I was not prepared. And it almost left me at the station to where I was like, I don't know how, I don't really feel good about this. There was a couple scenes that pulled me in where I go, okay, I'm with it now. I think I'm good. But man, you have to know what you're getting into whenever you step into the first frame of this movie.
Well, there's a part of me, like, I enjoy this movie very much, and I think it's extremely well made in its own way. Okay, same with Dracula. Where Coppola's Dracula, which is around the same time, but it's very well made, stylized, and has a lot of interesting things going on. But there's something about these two movies that I almost feel like these auteur filmmakers want you to know, I'm not taking this seriously. Like, like I'm really, really talented. I probably shouldn't have to make a movie like this, but I'm going to. But I'm winking at you.
Do you think it's that, or do you think it's like a kid with $1 million and is just gonna go batshit? They're just like, oh, I got money now to make a movie.
Sure.
Throw everything at this motherfucker.
That's a good point. Could be.
Because like I'm trying to think. I don't think either one of them had done anything like super big budget before this point.
No.
So I wonder if that's what it. He like with God bless him, Scorsese got it out of his system with Cape Fear. But
what's so strange is this was originally going to be a Spielberg movie. Did you read about that?
Yes, I did. And nothing fucked me up more in this movie than getting to the end of the credits and seeing Amblin pop up.
I was going to bring up the same thing.
What? This was an Amblin movie?
Yeah.
Like,
pretty out there.
This is not Phil Amblin at all. It takes someone like Scorsese to not see Spielberg's imprint all over the movie. I was like, that does not feel right. But yeah, apparently they switched this and Schindler's List is what I've heard.
That's what I've heard too.
So that's fascinating. Could you imagine a Spielberg Cape Fear and a Scorsese Schindler's List?
It's definitely a different world.
Yeah. Where's that alternate timeline?
Here's one thing. The original Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum, even though Gregory Peck's a little bit of a bigger dude, they kind of are equally matched, and they're both kind of imposing men, and you don't really know who would win in a fight between these two men.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, I thought the casting was kind of odd, because if you're going to cast De Niro, which I know he's very cut in this movie, and he has a persona that's very intimidating.
Yeah, Nolte looks bigger in ways.
I mean, Nolte is like easily 6 feet tall, and De Niro is probably like 5'8" or something. He's, kind of a smaller guy.
But like you said, there's something to be said about that mind frame.
Sure.
Especially of someone that's got nothing to lose. And then someone who's got everything to lose, that's a big difference.
Well, and that's definitely like the big theme of this movie is, one person, it's like society versus primordialism or something. It's like one guy is like almost like caveman throwback.
Yes.
I take what I take and I don't really feel bad about it. He's got a lot of like rhetoric that kind of like dances around it or whatever with like religious stuff and everything. But like, at the end of the day, he's a throwback. He's a caveman.
Yeah.
And a barbarian or whatever. And then you have this other guy that's like very milquetoast and like put upon and, maybe kind of like belittled a lot by the people in his life. And you just wonder like, how far is he going to toe that line before he breaks and ends up, spoiler, bashing someone's head in with a rock.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sort of like when is... That's kind of the line we're towing, and I guess maybe that's why you want to like cast someone that's capable, because apparently Harrison Ford was who they wanted for the Nick Nolte part originally.
Really?
Like they were like really trying to woo him, and De Niro personally tried to get him in the part. And that's another example where I just feel like Harrison Ford could beat the living crap out of De Niro in most cases, but like. Maybe that's what they're going for. It's like, why is this imposing man not taking up for himself in a more traditional way? Why is he kind of keep, going for help and going through legal channels? And why isn't he just like, doing a haymaker, John Wayne style, type of thing?
Which is what everybody tells him to do. Law enforcement, other lawyers, everybody's like, fuck the law, dude. Just kill this guy.
Right.
Everybody, he's like, no, I can't. It's the law. And it's like, look, I'm a cop. I'm not telling you to, but if he just turned up, fucked up, or dead, it happened. I don't know. I can't tell you to do that. Everybody told him, just fuck the law, man.
That's why.
Just kill him.
If it was like Rick Moranis in the role or something,
the
alchemy would be so much different. Where it'd be like, okay, I get why this guy is like horribly trying to avoid, an actual confrontation. Yeah. But no, they cast someone that's actually pretty imposing. And
also, I don't know why this just popped up. I'm sure you heard this. Originally, they were going to have Bill Murray be
when Spielberg was attached.
Yeah, when Spielberg was going to play Max.
Yeah,
that would have been a very different. Again, alternate universes, very different movies.
There was a hot minute where early in Murray's career, he was trying to do serious stuff, so he may have taken it extremely method and serious, and it may have been an interesting performance. I don't know.
How many at this time? How many serious movies had he done?
Well, only one that I know of. That Razor's Edge movie where he played
Razor's Edge.
Yeah,
was he in Razor's Edge? Or I'm thinking of Rivers.
No, yeah,
Edge.
He played a version of
had Where the Buffalo Roams come out yet?
That's what I'm thinking of. Never mind.
Okay,
that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
Hunter S.
Thompson. Yeah. I don't know what. Maybe I'm just making up a title.
Maybe
with Razor's Edge. But yeah,
well, I know Rivers Edge. That movie with like Crispin Glover and all that.
Yeah. But anyway,
and Daniel Roebuck.
Bill Murray had kind of done that and took a hiatus, I think, because it wasn't very well received, and I think it was like Ghostbusters 2 or something that brought him back into the fold, just doing whatever.
Yeah, people weren't ready for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas yet.
Or Lost in Translation for him, to be more...
Had to wait. Hunter S. Thompson couldn't get mainstream until Terry Gilliam came in and knocked that shit out of the park.
Yeah, it's so many different versions. It's weird, these commercial blockbuster movies. All the different people you hear are attached to it at one point or considered. Because apparently they after they couldn't get Harrison Ford, they were like Kevin Costner, Robert Redford, like all these different people.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't know. It's hard to see any of those really. As weird as it is, you saying the dynamic of their stature, I only see Nick Nolte really out of all of them playing it, which I'm sure any of them could have done fine in the role, but I don't know.
It's definitely the less glamorous. I mean, really, the Nick Nolte part is the worst part of all the major ones. You know what I mean? The women parts are pretty interesting.
He's the one that does not stand out at all.
He has to be the straight man, basically.
Yeah. Everybody else is absolutely killing it in their roles. Max, I don't remember Jessica Lange's character.
It is Lee.
Is absolutely killing it. And then Danny, Juliette Lewis, is absolutely killing it.
Also nominated for an Oscar. Yeah.
Which actually makes sense. She was fantastic in this movie. And I think only 18 or something.
Yeah, played a little younger, but yeah.
It was really amazing. Yeah, Nick Nolte's the only one that's probably actually, as much as I say that I can only see him, you could probably replace him with just about anybody because I'm not saying that he's a bad actor, didn't do good, but he, like you said, he's kind of the straight man of the piece. His character is almost just to further the story. The acting really comes from all the other characters surrounding him.
I could have seen 1990-ish Michael Douglas or someone like that, kind of getting into this role and maybe giving it just a little bit more oomph.
Matthew Modine.
That's interesting.
I only think of that because there's this one scene in this movie where Nick Nolte goes up to Sam. He goes up to his daughter Danny and is asking her if Max touched her, and he really flips out on her, grabs her face and all that, and is just losing it on her. And it in that moment, I was just like, dude, you are fucking breaking down. You need to get your shit together. You're losing it. And it reminded me of another movie. It's kind of about Yuppie Nightmare. If you've ever listened to With Gorley and Rust, their podcast, Matt Gorley and Paul Rust, they did a section that was about Yuppie Nightmare movies, and one of them they did was Pacific Heights with with Modine and Keaton and but throughout that movie, and Melanie Griffith, I think, but in that movie, Matthew Modine just keeps devolving and just everything he does, he just gets violent and erratic. And I'm just like, dude, you need to calm down. You're just making shit worse. And that just reminded me, Nick Nolte in that scene reminded me of Modine because I was like, dude, you're just fucking up. Stop. You're losing your shit.
we're talking about like societal norms, right? In this very well-to-do family, they have a great house, and I think they have help and everything. I mean, they're just very well-to-do, and then you have someone that's wrecking their lives.
Yeah.
That is like arguably the lowest tier of society, right? He's like an ex-convict, just on the fringe of society, but yet he can just like dismantle their lives so many ways over. This the undercurrent threat that he has to like their normal lives, I think is so personified in the really famous theater scene.
Oh
where they're watching friggin' Problem Child. It's like this so mundane, comedy or whatever. And
I was like, hell yeah, that was a big staple of my childhood. But
a little family night out just gets ruined by this guy, right?
Family night out watching the Oscar-worthy Problem Child. I really do love Problem Child.
Yeah,
though.
Gilbert Gottfried.
Problem Child 2 was better, in my opinion. It's so funny because there's a point where he's smoking the cigar and he goes to puff it, and you literally see smoke coming up behind him. From the smoke
it's almost
machines.
like it's almost like they accidentally made it supernatural or something. It's just like
That immediately I was like, oh my god, okay.
But it's just a wonderful scene, and it's a great personification of how easily your night can get ruined.
Yes.
By societal norms falling away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there's nothing you can do really. I mean, like you can politely ask someone to stop, but I mean, if they don't want to. That's kind of the end of the line, unless you want to like throttle someone over ruining a movie for you.
And I do.
I don't want to get back on that tangent, but I love that scene. It taps into something for me. And then obviously, they do a great job of showing how threatening De Niro's character is, how Caddy is extremely capable. Early on they hire some heavies to kind of like, beat him up a little bit and tell him, hey, you got to get out of town and just leave these people alone. And I mean, he has no problem taking care of these guys. Like it's a great scene, and obviously later you see that
it still feels like though, there's no way he could take that beating.
Oh, no.
There's no way. He was getting fucked up.
But he is a force of nature. I think they're trying to show that he can take a lot of damage and not just shrug it off. I mean,
yeah, for sure. Oh, they hammered that point home a lot. Yeah, I would say the big scene, one of the scenes for me that really kind of solidified this movie where I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I'm here, I'm with it, is the scene with Danny and Max in the theater. And, there's the obvious motif. They're like a little cottage there. It's very much Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf in grandmother's clothing and all that. But it's one of the only scenes, and probably the first scene in the movie up to that point, where everything is simplified. Like the music goes away, fancy angles, effects. It's literally pretty much just two shots. It's on De Niro, and it will cut to Lewis and back to De Niro, and just goes back and forth, and it's just a simple scene of these two people acting their asses off, and not in like a like heightened way, just like really just delivering some fantastic performances. And in a movie where De Niro is so over the top in a lot of it, like this scene really solidifies, oh, this dude is dangerous. You're sitting there the whole time just like terrified for Danny and what's going to happen next. It's one of the moments where you truly don't know what's going to happen next. And we've already seen him attack and rape a woman at this point. We don't know. This girl is all alone, and she's talking to this dude, and she kind of gets it, but she doesn't realize what she's dealing with. And you just see in his face someone who has got a mask on them of normality, but there is something very dangerous underneath. It's really fucking terrifying, and it's very simplified. And it was one of those scenes that I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, I'm with it.
Well, and like you said, we as an audience, we're let in on the fact that this man is not innocent. This man is not put upon. He deserved what he got. and he's still completely capable of horrible behavior and hurting people that are totally innocent. And the Ileana Douglas scene is extremely visceral and shocking.
It's pretty rough. And it's another one, though, that's terrifying because she's just drunk and laughing, and you're just like, no, pay attention to what's going on around you. Well, oh, my God.
The little notes of, like, the fact that he is drinking water the whole time.
Yes.
He keeps buying her drinks, and she doesn't quite click with her, like, oh, this dude's drinking, like, bottled water.
Yeah.
While I drink hard. You know what I mean? Like, something, the dynamic is not healthy here, you know? So, yeah, he's, like, very calculated. You know, I keep calling him a caveman and primordial, but he does have kind of like a very sinister intelligence. You know?
Even still, he's had 14 years to think about what he wants to do.
How he would go about these things,
That's the other thing that really solidified was not even just that scene of the attack. That was really rough and brutal, but the scene that comes up after where Sam goes and sees her in the hospital and she's just like, obviously really hurt and crying and just talking about how she can't press charges against him because she doesn't want to be the one on trial, and she knows the system, she knows how it is, and that she'll actually be the one on trial even though that the charges are against him and all this stuff. That was another tough scene to watch that just kind of solidifies that they're in this kind of like, you know, grand scheme of like over the top stuff. There is a real story that has something to say here and isn't just like commercial, like cookie cutter type stuff. Just throw it out for the it's not just that there's more to it than that.
Like, you know, we're joking about this thing swinging for the fences and being like ultra, it's like heightened, you know, realism and everything. But that also kind of helps contrast some of the things that you're talking about. These
for
quiet
sure, it
moments
makes those scenes that much more impactful. Because those scenes again, where the start of it comes out of nowhere for me, when I didn't know what I was getting into. By the time you kind of get acclimated with it, and you're like, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this, but okay. And then you get scenes like that, and it kind of grounds everything to a halt, to where you're like, oh shit, there's something serious here. That when it kind of winds back up, especially going into, because that's all like the first and third act. The second act has a lot more grounded reality to it. There's still over the top stuff in it, but it's really those first and third act that is where all the heightened stuff is. And where they center it, you know, some in the second act is where you can kind of see Scorsese is a competent filmmaker. So,
did you see this back in the day at all? You said you saw it on TV when you were young.
I got, you know, I remember just vaguely while watching it that I'd seen it back in the day, like on TV. But I had forgotten all about it.
Well, I just wanted to note, you know, younger people, or maybe you've just kind of forgotten, like the scene where we're first introduced to Caddy, and he's working out in prison, right?
Yes.
He's in a prison cell, and it's very iconic. It's been parodied on like The Simpsons and stuff like that.
This movie also bleeds in with that Simpsons episode because I've seen it so much. I kept watching, waiting for Max to step on a fucking rake 15 times.
Classic stuff. But you know, we get to see he's like really cut and muscular in a way that was pretty abnormal for that era. Now it's very mundane to see people look like that. But also
totally, I see that every day in the mirror.
But the tattoos. were a big deal back then.
Right.
You know, like now your dentist has tattoos. It's not a big deal anymore. But like, I still feel like in the early 90s, it was
that was still one of those things. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at those, his tattoos.
Like, I'm going to sound like I'm 700 years old, but it literally used to be criminals in the military.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the only people that got tattoos back in the day.
Yeah.
Fringe society people. And I feel like that fell away when athletes started getting tattoos, and then it became normalized. You know, you had like the Dennis Rodmans of the world kind of make it, you know, very mundane, and now like literally everyone has them. But I remember being a young person and seeing that and being like, holy shit, like he's got all this weird iconography on him, and you know, it's borderline like Nazi style stuff. You know, you kind of see scattered in there, and it kind of gives you a hint of maybe some of the things he had to go through in prison, you know, and maybe how he was even further dehumanized. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Just the 90s of it all.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I mean, that's definitely true. Yeah, I definitely vividly remember growing up and being, just like the consensus it felt like around, what I saw from TV and what I saw just in my small, like, society. It seemed very much like it was like tattoos are for bad people, or like tough people and all this. Yeah, it was not you didn't have, the hipster down the road who has vanity muscles covered in tattoos. This was very
I'm
much...
sitting right here.
It was very much for a different sect of people,
right.
For sure.
Now it's like for Salt Life mommies.
Yeah. I'm sitting right here.
I mean, it's called Cape Fear because
Right.
they end up on, this, I guess, river.
Yeah.
Cape Fear.
It was kind of, at times it seemed like a river, other times it seems like just a swamp. I don't
Right.
know. I couldn't really grasp it down, like, into what specific, but,
So the title is like the final showdown location, basically, on like kind of a houseboat type of situation.
Yeah.
And then, you get your answer about, will this milquetoast lawyer be able to go all the way? And spoiler, he can't quite do it. He's still in that mode of, I just can't kill someone, even if he's done all these things. I mean, it's one of those things where you're watching it as a viewer, again, even though it's a monster movie and heightened, I feel like most people are like, I could do it. I mean, I would have no problem killing this man at this point,
See
of all
that
the things he
head?
did.
Smash that shit.
But I mean, I think as, when it comes to storytelling or whatever, that's what kind of makes it interesting is that he can't quite pull that trigger or whatever, that he still kind of lets it go. Although he does willfully let him die still.
Right.
I
He
mean,
doesn't exactly
go out of his way to save him.
He won't be a willing participant, but, he's not going to go out of his way to save him either.
How do you feel about De Niro's death scene in this? The weird choices.
I mean, it's kind of crazy because for the most part, up into that point, you're kind of into it. You're like, oh my God, what's happening? This is happening. The camera's flipping. The crazy angles actually make sense when the boat is like going everywhere and everything's rocking around. They're having to jump overboard. The boat gets basically broke down to fucking splinters. And there's all this stuff. And then it's like De Niro's just like, I got it. I'm going to talk in tongues. That's how I'm going to die. And you're just like, it honestly took me out of the movie a little bit.
I mean, it almost becomes like Looney Tunes or something.
It does.
It's like Bugs Bunny drowning, and how he would go about it. I mean, it's just really, it's an odd choice, but it sticks with you. I mean, there's something to it. Because I vividly remember, years later, I mean, that was something when I was rewatching it, I was like looking forward to it. You know what I mean? It's like, I get to see this part again.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just so great. Like, I don't know.
It was definitely interesting, that's for sure.
You want to stick the landing with it? What you
one other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you're a smarter guy than me. You're more profound
not true.
and
shallow as a mud puddle,
deeper, and kind of think the subtext of a lot of stuff where I'm just like, that's pretty cool. But the lipstick scene, like, what do you make of that? Do you know what I'm talking?
Refresh me.
Like part where, because I even Googled it. I'm not gonna lie. There's a part where after they have sex, Jessica Lange's character gets up and like puts lipstick on and everything, and then she's kind of just like looking at herself, and then she goes to the window, sees Max on the wall, freaks out, wakes him up, and when they go down to try to find him, you see her kind of wipe it off before he can see it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it felt to me like some like B plot that they forgot to put in, where like she was waiting for someone she was having an affair with or something. I was just like, what is that about? And I know when I looked it up kind of online, some people were like, oh, it's her kind of longing for like maybe her loss of like beauty or perceived loss, because she's still fucking gorgeous,
for sure.
But maybe her perceived loss of like youth and beauty, and like just missing the passion and the way her husband used to feel about her and stuff. I was like, I guess that's it, but I don't know. It just stuck out to me like they had some plot where she was cheating on him, maybe like to get him back or whatever, and then they just, at the end of, they're like, okay, that's a wrap, and they're like, what about the dude that's she's supposed to be cheating with? And he's like, fuck. Oh well, just forget it. We'll just keep the lipstick scene in. That's fine. I didn't know what you thought about it. It was just odd.
I got nothing.
Okay.
After all that preamble of me being deep, I don't have any. I almost kind of forgot it when you were talking. I like, you probably saw the gears in my head. I was like, what? No, I mean, I feel like that maybe it is just kind of surface level of, you know, maybe she kind of feels like maybe they had some very vanilla sex, and she was just like, you know, maybe I can kind of recapture.
He never lets me come.
Oh, I'm gonna cut that probably, or lead with it.
Boom.
Okay, so what do you want to give this guy? What are you giving Cape Fear 1991?
You know, honestly, if it wasn't for that second act kind of grounding it a little bit, this would probably be a low C for me.
Really?
Yeah, to be honest, it was tough to get into a lot of it, and maybe it's just because of what I went into, you know, expecting. Maybe watching it again sometime down the line, knowing what I'm getting into, maybe I'll enjoy it a lot more. But with that in there, I'd say I'd probably give it a B-.
Oh, well, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, but for different reasons. I mean, I just feel like, you know, going back to the podcast, the southernness of it, I mean, out the window. I mean, this is not authentic.
Yeah, no.
You know, it at least is shot around the South,
yes.
So it has that going for it and everything. You definitely get that humidity feeling of the South and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, as far as the acting goes, and maybe someone caring about it being authentic with Scorsese is kind of out the window. But with that said, I kind of like it. I kind of like that it's so bombastic and silly and over the top. I am a little perplexed by the Oscar nomination for De Niro, but yeah. I mean, he was just, you know, considered the best actor around. So I guess
he's fucking De Niro.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to agree. We're going to give it a straight B-. Cape Fear.
Sounds good.
Check it out. Like Adam said, maybe go in with a certain set of expectations if you've never seen it before.
Yes.
You know, this is...
If you're thinking Scorsese, The
Right.
Departed, Taxi Driver, Gangs of New York.
Right.
You know.
Goodfellas.
Yes. That's not this movie.
Yeah.
So don't expect that. This is a very different movie.
This is his B picture, I would say.
For
This is,
sure.
You know, his
Yeah.
fun, you know.
Yeah. This is his genre fare.
With that said, though, there are a couple of visceral moments, so just kind of
Yes.
have a little bit of armor on. Don't go in thinking this is like a fun movie exactly.
Yeah, there are some tough
moments,
there are some
you
tough
know.
scenes like we said, but yeah, for the most part, this would probably just play as really kind of fun and over the top and silly.
Agreed. All right, so that's a B- from the Holler Kings.
Boom, baby.
On every episode of the Holler Kings, we have a segment called Holler at Your Boys.
Holler at your boys, y'all.
It's true. In this segment, we kind of bring anything to the table, and I brought kind of a game to the table. This is going to be us recasting Cape Fear. This has already been made for 2 generations in the 60s and the 90s. It's due for a remake. So... in the year 2023, I've already...
due for a requel.
Damn it, I'm talking.
Damn it, sorry.
No, that was good, though. It is due for a remake. Who would you pick to be in the cast of 2023's Cape Fear?
I think I would go with... well, see... I'll pick the one that I have that I'm for sure about. Like, the only one that was easy is the Max part.
Sure, Max Caddy, yeah.
Yeah. I would go with Richard Brake.
Refresh me on who that is.
He was the only good thing in 31.
Okay.
He was also in Barbarian recently. He's like in
sure.
the flashback and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Really fantastic actor, and I think he would be. He's a little bit older than De Niro was back then, but he was still really good in it.
And very sinister too.
Yes, he's very good at playing that.
Nice.
So, what about you?
Well, I just want to really quickly. One of the reasons I thought of this is because Creed 3 just got released to theaters. And it has a dynamic that's similar to Cape Fear, where it's like someone coming into your life and kind of wrecking it. You know, a very well-to-do person with Michael B. Jordan, his character from Creed, and you know this. I forgot the other actor's name. Jonathan Majors. Oh, yeah. He's kind of like, you know, the Max Caddy of the Rocky universe. He kind of comes in and like terrifies this guy and, you know, messes up his life. And that made me, people were comparing it to Cape Fear or whatever, and that made me think of it. So for all purposes, you could probably just recast with those two guys in the leads, you know.
That would work.
But I'm gonna go different just because it's a little easy. Who I have for Max Caddy is Michael Shannon. I thought he would be kind of a cool.
That's a good
kind of
choice.
a more subdued, but he could still chew some scenery if he needs to.
And
type of guy.
Can be absolutely fucking frightening.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah. I like that.
So and he's also technically a Southerner, so I think he would be able to bring that kind of Dixie fried flavor.
Yes,
who
sir.
do you got next?
Let's go with Danny, Juliette Lewis's character.
Okay.
This is one that's tough for me because I don't know a lot of young actors.
This is a big question mark for me too.
And it was going to be very easy for me to just throw Jenna Ortega because she gets cast in everything.
Yeah, I almost did the same thing.
But I was like, I got to do a little better than that. The only one I could really think of for sure is, I think could probably do it because she's a good actress and everything. But honestly, it's just because I recently saw the announcement that they have done a sequel called The Wrath of Becky. That's Lulu Wilson. I thought she'd be really good in it. I mean, she was fantastic in like all the Flanagan stuff she was in, and I really like Becky. I'm psyched for Wrath of Becky, so I figured, she'd be probably pretty good in it.
That's a great choice. I mean, I'm so ill-versed in anyone under 25.
Yeah,
and then also
same. It's tough.
There's like the complication of, you know, are we going to like preserve some of the weirdness of De Niro and Juliette Lewis here, and we're going to have like a young actress kind of playing against an older man in a sexual way? You know, how comfortable are we with this nowadays? That being said, I don't have a specific actor. I do think it would be, you know, kind of a lesser known person. And I think it'd be kind of cool. Let's say, you know, you pick two white actors to be, you know, the Nick Nolte and Jessica Lange characters again.
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of cool to have a black person be Danny.
Yeah.
Because that would imply, and God bless anyone that adopts, and, you know, if you raise someone else's children, this is not real world criticism, but in the context of storytelling, it would imply that this milquetoast character couldn't consummate having a child, right? So you get that subtext in there without having to say it, right? You just know watching it like, oh, that's probably, you know, either a different father or, you know, and he's raising it, or, you know, this young lady has been adopted by them or whatever. And I think that would add like another little nuance to it. Right. And make him more of a protector than a traditional dad, which I think would also kind of break up the, you know, make it a little fresh or whatever. Yeah. So that's my own little, you know,
I kind of try to think that way too, but I kept just running into like a sort of like block where I just kept trying to remake Cabin Fever like Psycho style, where it's just like everybody was similar to them. I was like, should do it blended or
you
just
said
like
Cabin Fever.
Did I say Cabin Fever? What am I? Psycho.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you know, shot for shot type thing. I was get people that look similar to the, you know, everybody in Cape Fear and all that. I kept running into that block. But so who was the person, or you just say it in general?
Just in general. Gotcha. I mean, honestly, I would probably just pick someone from like Yellow Jackets and just call it a day. I'd be like, just one of these people. They look teenage enough. You know, they can play.
That's fair. For Nolte, now this is a tough one. I had a couple different choices in this, but I think with you talking about the whole milquetoast idea of it, I'm gonna go with Steve Zahn.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. I had a couple ideas of like Ben Foster or Bradley Cooper, but I think playing that kind of level of someone who's kind of domesticated, I guess you could say. I think Steve Zahn could do that really good. And he's got some really good dramatic chops.
For sure. No, it's a great choice. A little off the beaten path, too.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a whole lot in a while, and I always really liked him. You know, when he does foray and kind of into the horror with like Joyride or The Perfect Getaway, he's always really good.
My choice is a little more mainstream, but I think he could do it as Bob Odenkirk.
Ooh,
I think he'd be kind of a cool,
yeah.
You know, because I could see him being affable and likable and everything, but
I mean,
also
nobody, baby.
Right, well, yeah, like he has that. You could see him. Like, is he going to finally do something?
Yeah.
Or, you know, that question that I think this movie sort of plays around with, I think he'd be a great, you know, kind of example for that, where you could see him being a browbeaten milquetoast guy, but also someone that could, you know, unleash something if he needed to. So,
yeah, for sure.
Know. Plus, he's just a good actor. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Doing anyone else?
You have somebody for Lee?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There's another one I wasn't sure. And again, I'm trying to just go with someone who's beautiful and blonde and super talented and amazing actress. And I went with Charlize Theron.
Oh, sure.
So
I could see her opposite Steve Zahn, too.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
I also thought of someone like maybe Rose Byrne or something like that. Or I don't know how you pronounce her name. Or Emily Blunt. But my first thing that came to my head is like Jessica Lange, who would kind of be that similarity, and I went with Charlize Theron.
Nice. She has a lot of qualities of a Jessica Lange too. You know, yeah, I could see that for sure. Although she's so tough, I could almost see her like beating up Max Cady.
For sure,
especially with who you cast. She would just be like, "Fuck you, dude!" And, like punt him across the room. But you know, she could be kind of like the Nick Nolte character, where it's kind of like, you know, she's domesticated. So yeah. My choice is Melanie Linsky.
Nice. There you go.
So someone, you know, I could see her. She's like the appropriate age, and her and Odenkirk, I think, aren't too far apart, or I could see them as a couple and everything. And she can kind of do those barbs that I think she's sort of, you know, the kind of underhanded barbs at this husband that you know, they're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, you can tell they're not in a happy marriage. Right. They kind of shit on each other, just passive aggressively. They kind of take pot shots at each other. Yeah. I think that's good.
There you go.
It's good. She has a really good like deadpan to her.
Oh yeah, no, I love her. Yeah.
I don't feel at home in this world anymore.
Yeah, top tier.
God, so good.
Top tier.
So good. Sure. And I'm sure, I still haven't seen Yellow Jackets, but I'm sure she's amazing in it too.
She's like the anchor of the show for me, but it's a really great show. Well,
so excited for the Cabin Cape Fear remake. God damn it, I almost did it again. Jesus. Eli Roth is fucking trying to infiltrate my brain.
Who do you think could direct a Cape Fear remake?
That's a good question. You know, right off the top of my head, just because I think it just depends what kind of movie you're making. If you're trying to do what I've initially saw in my head, and you're thinking like classic like horror thriller, there's this movie called New Year, New You. That was like, it's technically an episode, but it's full length. It was one of the episodes of Into the Dark. It was directed by, I think it's Sophia Takal, who I thought she did really good with that movie. It has a very kind of classical horror thriller to it. Think could be good, you know, someone like that. Or I'm trying to think of like some of like the big people in, you know, like in the realm of horror right now. And as much as I like Eggers and like Astor and stuff like that, maybe Astor would work for Cape. God damn it! If I say Cabin Fever one more time, shit. Cape Fear, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Who is the lady that directed Babadook?
Oh, Jennifer Kent. Yeah, that'd be good.
Because, you know, after her Guillermo del Toro Cabinet of Curiosity episode, she has like a real flair for like interpersonal relationships, and like mature relationships and stuff. And I think that would be really interesting to have someone with horror chops, but also the chops to do kind of those like, you know, like couples speaking to each other and kind of being able to heighten it and be able to see some subtext. I think she would be really cool. I like that it would be cool too if it's a woman director, because it's kind of like it'd be interesting to see that kind of angle when we're dealing with kind of masculinity and you know, that sort of thing. Maybe that would kind of help make it fresher and stuff. I don't know. So
maybe Lee Janiak.
Refresh me on who that is.
She did the Fear Street trilogy.
Oh, fun. Yeah. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. We just recasted / put together a package for Cape Fear 2023.
Cabin Fever.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. Adam, thank you for participating.
Sir, it's been my pleasure.
Until next time.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Hey-oh! Maybe I can kind of recapture.
He never lets me come.
Oh.